Just want to make sure because I didn't know if you threw a curveball. Oh, you already hit live.
Yep, I'm Johnny on the spot.
Oh, you're
So,
Chris on the spot.
yeah, John. Wait, Chris on the spot. That doesn't rhyme as well. I don't know. It doesn't flow off the tongue. So we got the Modern Dad Council here. Jay Forty will be hopefully joining us in a few. We have a guest on today, Eric Leaman from Game Changers. Eric, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of give us a little bit of background of what it is that you do and what Game Changers is?
Sure, thanks so much. Well, I've been running something called the Game Movement for about a year now, a little over, and the main vision is to inspire kids to choose a different life that doesn't include violent video games. And then I guess the opportunity is also to bring the unit back to the family and find a beautiful and uplifting way to fill the void that's going to be created when a kid actually trades in a violent video game. So to that end, I'm hoping to inspire dads and parents of all types to make a pledge to spend 2 more hours per week with their kids. And we'll see where it goes. There's a lot of amazing movement already, and I'm just excited to be here, sharing this time with you all. And I'm forwarding this movement as a single dad, and it's a interesting balancing tightrope walk, to just go from like movement maker to daddy. I mean, I was just, the reason I was kind of like discombobulated when we first got together is that I was just coming from a little play that my daughter was in, and I really wanted to see her perform, and she really wanted me to be there, and so it's all part of the day, and this new thing called fatherhood.
Right on. And that's kind of what our show today is kind of talking about life as a divorced dad. And right now we have everybody that's on is gone through that. And I love Tommy has a phrase that he uses because now that he's remarried and has what the public calls stepkids, but he gives them the title of bonus kids.
Wow.
And I really love that, and that's something that when I had my bonus kids, I wish I would have thought of that. It's pretty neat. But so it's interesting that you bring up that you started the Game Changers. Like part of your movement is to get you to spend that extra little bit of time with your kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I find that really easy to, especially being a part-time dad, is I've got my own stuff going on, and the days that I have my kids can kind of blend in with my busy lifestyle, right? So it's like, oh, I got my kids today. Here's the iPad, go play, or here's go in your room and play video games. I got stuff to do. I got shows to record and stuff.
Right.
Right? Talking about what a great dad I am. So go away.
Right. And I think that's the amazing balance of it all. Is that like how and not that I need to equate myself with like Mahatma Gandhi and all these other movement makers, but like how do you be about the world and your family at the same time? And I think it's not a question I know the answer to yet. It's just a daily practice to just figure out where the priorities are in any given moment.
That you just hit the nail on the head right there, is that living in the moment and taking advantage of those situations as they come up, right? So absolutely. Yeah, that it brings up thought yesterday. My kids, I don't have my kids every day because I'm divorced, and so I had this week I have them Thursday and Friday, and I had stuff going on in the evening for my show and stuff, meetings with Michael and everything else, and I'm like, man, I got my kids are here. I'm in my office. I was like, look, can we reschedule some of this stuff? And I shoot out a text, and I went and I spent some time playing a video game with my son. It's
Sure.
not a violent video game either. It's Portal 2. Have you
Mm.
seen? Have you played that? No.
I've only recently played the games that are like dancing or like, where they can kind of grab your graphics or grab your movement, so like Connects games or whatever that is.
Right.
So I don't really know how to use the current, you know, I used to call them joysticks when I last knew how to like play a video game. So,
The old Atari games.
right.
No, this is Portal's like you're a robot, and at least in the two-player mode, I don't know what the campaign is, but you're like a robot, and you have it's it's like a portal gun, not a shoot 'em gun. So you there's only certain areas of the wall that you can shoot this portal onto, and it's basically a puzzle. So you've got to figure out where to put the portals so that you can walk through the one portal and you come out somewhere else, right? Um, and then by working as a team, you work your way through the map, basically.
Gotcha.
You don't have to blow anything up. I mean, there's these turrets, and so sometimes you gotta like find these boxes and angle the. Anyway, it's a lot of fun, and then the fact that it's teamwork with your, my son's 14, so
Hmm.
I'm working with him on, okay, how do we figure this out? Like, all right, try this, let's try that, and then he's like, well, I'm gonna try doing that. Yeah, cool. That's a lot of fun, and
Hmm.
it really is a cool way to connect.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I learned that recently just with my son. Just I joined him with that basketball, where because he thought I was just swearing off video games in general. So I saw him playing one at like actually at an event where we were, cutting violent video games into pieces and turning them into art, which is the other part of the game changer movement. Um, and he's just playing this game all alone, and then I go up and just take a pic from the arcade, and I meet him. He is a powerful exchange because I started beating him at the game. He told my computer's done. Um,
Eric,
so
you're chopping up. We missed like a lot of what you were saying there. Sorry.
gotcha. I think my computer is overheating. Uh,
Lost you. All right, you're frozen, so we're gonna take off with what you're saying. And I think one of the points he made is that he met him where he was at. So he was at this event where they were chopping up violent video games and making them into art, and he took a moment to walk away from that and to meet his kid where he was at. And we kind of talked about that last week, meeting our kids where they are, and instead of where we'd like them to be necessarily, right?
Well, for me, when we have our kids, it's easier to control, what they're doing and things like that versus when they're with, their other parent. And the thing that drives me nuts is that when I talk to my son, when I call him, he's not playing, violent video games per se. What he's playing is like NHL hockey, that stuff. But when he's over here at our house, we don't have any video games. We have an old, very old Wii, and it doesn't work. And something like Eric was talking about as far as what games we have those little dance games. But for the most part, it's not about playing video games here. It's about doing something. Be it go outside and throw the baseball around, throw a football around, things like that. And so my biggest concern is as our kids get older is that they're going to get into that comfort zone of just only sitting around playing video games versus like when we were all kids. Before, like I was kidding, but before Atari, before the Commodore VIC, computers and things like that, we were actually outside, living the video games.
Right. I was, I mean, that was right at the Commodores and the Ataris was right at that age group for me. Like I could have gone into that, but I was never really a gamer. Yeah, I'd play here and there, but for the most part, I'd rather be doing something outside.
I think as a society or culture, we spend a tremendous amount of energy and resources and money in simulating things instead of actually creating opportunities for people to experience those things in a real way. We build all of these gyms with treadmills, and I'm gonna go use it today because it's more about it. But there are, instead of building more jogging paths, instead of doing more stuff where people can have the real experience. So, I think we're raising a generation of kids who sometimes live more in the simulated world in a way than they do in the real world, and that presents some challenges. I mean, on the one hand, the simulated world can be safer, sort of, than the real world, but also, you don't get real world experience.
Well, to your point, real quick, Thomas, where we live here, we're about an hour north of Denver, and the big push has been bike paths. And this year they extended one of the bike paths by our house and then connected it to another bike path. And so that, like you were saying, the reality, instead of going to, the gym, paying 30, 40, 50, $100 a month for something you're never going to use, when you have, like you said, reality right outside your front door, your back door. I agree. I think, we're not, not just adults, but as kids, they're not living in the so-called reality of things like that. They're more in tune to wanting to play on, like Eric was talking about, the Kinects and the Wiis and, the PS 400. Like I said, I don't have video games, so I have no idea what the latest ones are. But the point is, we as parents, we as adults need to set better examples, and we need to be better mentors to our kids and to even their friends, to show that, what, that's great that you can get to level 15, but what can you do outside? Can you throw, a football? Can you go run 100 yards without being winded? And so that's how I look at reality that way.
Yeah, I'm the same way, because I can't connect. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was playing that Portal 2 yesterday with my son, and that was fun because of the premise of the game. It was a puzzle, we had to work together, but there aren't very many games where you really are working together in that type of a way. Like, we're talking back and forth as we're playing the video game, so there's dialogue instead of just in the game, like, zoned out. But typically, I want to be outside. Like, I'm the dad that gets kickball games going with the kids in the neighborhood. And it's sad when you live in a neighborhood that has a bunch of kids in it, and you go down to the pool and there's only a handful of kids down at my neighborhood has a pool. There's only a handful of kids down there. What are the rest of them doing? They're sitting at home playing video games or talking to people online and stuff like. That's what my stepdaughter does all the time. Well, ex-stepdaughter. That's what she does all the time. She's always on the computer talking to people, and I'm like, go out and talk to people. Go interact. Have a real relationship with somebody, or conversation, not this BS over. Not. Wait a minute. I think I'm backing myself into a corner there with what I was getting at. We're talking about real stuff on this show, so that's different.
Well, but that it brings up a good point, because there's something that I've been kind of thinking about in another context, which is that social media has become this place where people can say things and do things and express opinions and kind of be outrageous, really without very much real consequence. I mean, the worst thing that happens to you if you piss someone off on Facebook is that they unfriend you or whatever, which you may not even realize that they do it. So that doesn't translate to the the real world, where if you say something offensive to someone's face, you're going to have a conflict or a problem, or true hurt feelings that kind of have to get resolved in the moment. Whereas with the social media, it's just like, okay, we cut off contact and that's it, and that tenuous little connection is severed. So I think the more real world experiences we can have, and the more real world experiences we can create for our kids, where there are actually real consequences to your actions, whether it's whatever it is that they say, or whether it's the fact that, if someone gets shot in the real world, they don't respawn, they're dead. In the game, it's like, okay, wait 5 seconds and you're back in action.
Right. Though that's the funny thing about that. I was telling you guys last week, I got my son a paintball gun for his birthday.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He will not let me shoot him with it. I'm like, what do you think's gonna happen when we go paintballing? I thought that was funny. He doesn't realize, like you were saying, in the video games and stuff like that, it's cool when he's watching these his friends showing pictures of them when they went out paintballing. That's one thing, but to actually experience getting shot, he saw the welt on my back. He's like, I don't want to get shot with that thing. Like, well, what do you think's gonna happen?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a couple of things, Thomas. I remember years ago, I worked for a company, and I took this email class, and it was essentially about how to send email in a business way. And the issue that we got on was, when you send an email, how's that other person responding? I mean, the words that you're using within that context of that email, people are going to interpret that email a couple different ways. And the other thing is, but the flip side to technology in a positive way, especially for, bring it back to being a divorced dad, is that my son is 11, and yes, he has a cell phone, and mostly because I want to stay in contact with him. And for me, the positive side of him having that cell phone, and the positive to technology, is that I can shoot him a text simply saying, hey, thinking of you, love you, or another text of, hey, how was school, I'll talk to you later, things like that. And so again, when it comes to the business world, people are going to interpret our messages one way, but as a parent, I think it's vital that we take the technology that we have today and use it in a little bit of a more, maybe I wear the rose-colored glasses, but in more of a positive way. And like you were talking about, Chris, about playing video games with your son, finding video games, finding things that you both can do, getting on to their level. And that's the one thing I've learned as a youth hockey coach. It's not about standing over a kid. It's about getting down on one knee, getting eye level with them, and that's what it should be. It should be about getting on their level. But originally, to Eric's point about having violent video games, does the world really need more violence? Do we really need to keep harping on that versus let's find things that we all can do together? Be it a video game, but spending only a certain amount of time saying, all right, we're going to play this game for 20 minutes, and we're going to do something realistically. We're going to go outside, or we're going to take a bike ride, or something to that effect.
Right. No, that's absolutely right. It's cold here. It was like 32 the other day, and I went for a walk, and it just went outside just to get that fresh air, because I think with all this technology, most of what I do for work now is in this room, so with what you're saying, sometimes I just need to get out and get a breath of fresh air, let alone my kids. Shoot, there's days in the summer where my son say, I just want to stay home and sleep in.
It's like almost 40 degrees here in northern Colorado.
You punk.
Yeah.
What's the
No snow.
temperature? What's the temperature in your area there, Thomas?
Oh, Connecticut, it's pretty chilly today. I'll bring up the Weather Channel, but I'm guessing it's well. The sun is shining actually. We had a little dusting of snow yesterday. We had rain the day before. It's 37 right now.
Okay, so not too bad, but still chilly.
It's still chilly. Yeah, the getting out is definitely important, and I think also, that sort of brings you to the idea, and this is more true, I guess, with younger kids than as they get older, but um, they really need leadership and motivation from us to do things that they end up really enjoying, but they don't think they're going to enjoy them when you first offer it. Let's go for a walk to the library. Let's do this. No, I don't want to. It's cold out. It's this. It's, I'll come on. So you kind of have to convince and cajole and persuade and like it. And then afterwards, oh yeah, Dad, I had a really good time. That was great. Let's do that again. So we're sort of the originators of that, because if you just leave it to entropy, they'll stay in bed, they'll play their games, they'll watch the TV, they'll do whatever is sort of comfortable, and then at the end of the day they'll be tired even though they haven't really done anything, because they haven't done anything, because there's been no activity.
Right.
So but I think it's a challenge um, to challenge sometimes to motivate your children to do those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging too, being that part-time dad, because they're not here that often, and then maybe at their mom's house they get to sit and watch TV and play video games. So they come here and it's almost like a punishment when
Right.
you're like, no, we're going to go outside and do something, or we're going to get out of the house, and no, you can't play your video games. No, you can't watch TV. No, you can't numb your brain.
Right. So I think the challenge, and here's maybe some advice for other divorced fathers out there, it is to try to strike a balance. So if you have your kids, let's say every other weekend, you can say, on one of these weekend days, I'm just going to let them do their thing. Like we're not going to get up really early. We're not going to have a big thing planned. We're just going to hang out on Saturday morning or whatever and kind of let that day take shape. But then on Sunday or whatever, we're going to have our kind of focused dad activity or whatever. We're going to go to the park. We're going to do something that requires everybody kind of getting out, because I find, at least with my kids, that they do want some of that time to just chill. And if you balance that with the activity time, it's better, at least in my family, than trying to jam pack a weekend with, okay, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and then they don't feel like they ever get to really just relax.
Well, that's a
Yeah.
great point, Thomas, because, for example, after our show today, I have to go pack uh, a, a bag for myself, a bag for my son, pack his hockey equipment, because actually we're headed up to the mountains this weekend because he's got a couple of games, and not only a couple of games, but they're outdoor games.
Ooh.
And to your original point, too, Thomas, the way I got my son Connor involved in hockey was I had worked at an ice rink years ago, and I said, I want to take you skating, and he kept hemming and hawing, saying, no, I don't want to. I said, here, one lap. Let's go do public skating. All you have to do is one lap, and we're done. Long story short, that's why we're leaving for the mountains today to go play hockey, because that one lap ended up we stayed the whole time for public skating. So you've got a valid point too, Thomas, is that, like you said, we don't want to jam pack everything in. Again, like we were talking earlier, find some commonality, find something that you and your kids can do, and again, maybe it is, maybe one of their favorite video games, and maybe it's, something that they can teach you on how to do. And that's kind of how you build that relationship. And then, like you're saying, Thomas, all right, so yesterday we did your thing. Today, let's maybe do this. And, again, like you're saying, especially us every other weekend dads, for me, it's only 46 hours. That's it. And so it's the quality versus quantity time that we want to get with our kids, and versus being the Disneyland dad of, hey, let's go to Toys R Us and let's go do this and let's go. No, let's try it and space everything out. But again, what I lost my train.
Well, that was a really good point.
Good train, yeah.
All right. I'm gonna shut up the rest of the time now. I made a great point. I'm done.
I'm out.
Go Cubs. Yeah, I'm out. Drop the mic.
Well, it did add some, some inspiration to like I remember. I mean, I was still married when the story, happened, but like my son was 5 years old. He's 11 now, and he was in dance class, and he was seriously considering, quitting dance. And we had this like man-to-man talk in his bedroom, and we sat down, and I was just like, why you want to quit dance? And he's like, Daddy, there aren't like that many boys in dance. And I'm like, I hear you, and that's true. And then I said, well, did you know that like if you stay in dance, you'll do really well in sports? And at 5, it didn't really register that like that would be a cool thing. And then I was just like, I was like in my salesperson mode, and I was just like, did you know that like girls really like boys who knew how to dance? And he's like 5, so that didn't even register. So, and then at some point, I don't even know what made me ask him this question. I said, Mason, did you know that your daddy really liked to dance? And he had no idea. And so like here he is, 5 years old. And like there was this aha moment where like he didn't even know that I like dancing, and then like this is a moment I'll never ever forget. He holds out his hand, and I didn't even know that he knew how to make a deal, but he was like basically offering me a deal, and he said and I was like, well, what are you trying to say? Are you saying that if I sign up for dance, you'll stay in dance? And he said, yup. So we shook on it, in his bedroom. And I'm like, okay, you're on. So I go in the living room, and I find the catalog of the dance classes that were available. And I'm a pharmaceutical at the time, pretty busy, and not like the entrepreneur, lifestyle design guy I am now. And the only thing that fit my schedule was adult/teen hip hop. So I show up, true to my word, sweatpants on, and I am the only adult that got the memo. So, it's me, like 20 16-year-old girls and 3 11-year-old boys just for spice, So I'm like, in essence, the perv in the back of the room, and like it was a very, it was an interesting moment because, a year later, or almost a year later, I danced in the Father's Day scheduled recital, in a tank top made out of spandex with red netting on top of it. And, I called myself the Shadow because I was 1 second off, but I did it, right? So, the whole point is, like, my son is now at 11. He's in the Nutcracker this week doing ballet. Wow. Now that he's still a dancer. And it just took, it took that experience to say, hey, dancing's cool. Guys dance. In fact, your dad dances. And it's just like, it's one of the best memories I have of being a dad. And I feel like that was like one of the first stories that like said, there was this aha moment. Like my son has no idea that I like dance. And I was like, he was 5. He had already lived 5 years knowing that I like to dance. So that was, that was one of my wake-up calls.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a cool story. Because I wouldn't have thought that, like, to take my son to dance. I mean, I want it. But, I look at my cousin. I have a cousin who is a professional dancer now. His sisters danced, and he's like, "Mom, I want to do this too." And they're like,
Mm,
"Well, that's something your sisters are doing." And
right.
he's like, "But I can do it too." And just by sitting there watching them go through their routines, he like busted out the dance,
Right.
whatever tap dance or whatever they were doing,
Hmm.
and they're okay, like all right, maybe we'll give this a shot. So they put him in dance, and now he won a bunch of contests out in Las Vegas, and then
Hmm.
now he's got a full ride scholarship to college and
Hmm.
everything else for dance. And who would have thought that, we want to play sports so you can get scholarships and all this, and then
Right. Oh
he's got a
no.
full
Oh,
ride on dance.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would
You don't
never
have to
have.
meet too many people. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Competition is low, and the point is there are not a lot of guys in dance. So just think of all the girls you get to meet too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
Wow.
he's got an older and a younger sister, so like he gets to meet kids on both age ranges, and he smiles a lot more every day because of it. I'm sure.
That's
Awesome.
cool.
So, kind of coming back a little to this idea of the divorce, spending time with the kids on the weekends. Um, One thing I've been thinking about is this idea of bids for attention, because in any relationship, it's a constant back and forth of bids for attention. You make bids for your kids' attention; they make bids for your attention. Their bids for our attention are very often play with me, be with me, do this with me, look at this, I want to show this to you. I want to bring you into my kid experience. Look at my drawing and don't just say, oh yeah, that's great, and then go back and look at your phone or your computer or whatever it is. Actually engage with it. So, and it's hard sometimes to engage with it because we're busy. But then
Hmm.
look at what our bids are frequently for attention from our kids. Clear your plate, get dressed, clean up, take a shower, get ready for school. When we want their attention, a lot of the time we're telling them
Hmm.
that they have to do something. So if we can get into the frame of mind of making different bids of attention for them, which is more like, oh, let's engage together. Whether Chris, it's you playing that game, the Portal with your son or whatever, or Tommy, you're doing the hockey, or Eric the dance, like going your child and obviously, we have to tell them get dressed, brush your teeth, and all that stuff. But to add to that this other type of bid for attention of, hey, let's go for a walk together, let's do this together, so that it's not all this one-sided. They're trying to pull us into their world, and we're just trying to make them function in ours.
Absolutely, and that really brings up the thought. So today, I know I was telling you guys earlier, but if you could see my shirt, it's my daughter's school had a Dad's Day, and it's this Dad's of academically dedicated students, so the acronym DADS, and so all the dads come in and volunteer, and there was 52 dads or something out of the whole school that came and volunteered today, which is
Wow.
awesome. That's a good turnout. There's 700 and some students, and somewhere around 80 some students dads, so 52 or 54 dads total. Anyway, but what I noticed is you could see the kids who have parents that don't give them that attention that you're talking about, Thomas, that
Yep.
don't give them that attention of, okay, let's talk, let me listen, let me spend some time with you, but let's connect with you and not just telling you what to do and not to do, because here I am trying to spend some time with my daughter, but I have like 3 or 4 other kids in her class that are glued to my hip
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have that male interaction in their
Right.
lives.
Yep.
And I mean, it's so apparent to me of what kids don't have that, and it's like, man, that sucks that I almost want to like pull your parents aside and be like, hey, could you maybe give them a little extra one-on-one sometimes because they're really starved for attention. And I go every Tuesday to volunteer at my daughter's class, so it's not that I just saw it today, but every Tuesday when it's the same couple of kids that are just dying for some amount of attention, and it's because I make sure that when I'm talking to them, I'm looking them in the eye and I'm listening to what they're saying and I'm engaged in what's going on in that particular moment. Well, and a lot of that, I get the opportunity because I get to pull them aside and do some work with them one-on-one, because I help them do their counting and their spelling and all that stuff. So you really get to know those kids on a personal level as opposed, and it's weird because I know when my son was growing up, I didn't do that as much with him. I mean, he's 14 now, and I didn't do that much with him as much as I wanted to, but that's because I was working night shift and I was worried about paying the bills and this and that and the other, and you get caught up in, like Eric, you were mentioning before, you didn't have time because your medical sales. Now that, right? Is that okay? And now you get a little bit more time freedom, and you can choose what to do with your time as opposed to having that feeling of being pulled in a million different directions.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think the other thing is to actually the job description of being a dad, and I mean, I know that I've modeled the other way too many times, I mean, I modeled, screen addiction before I decided to kind of model differently. When I was a pharmaceutical rep, I was in my screen like no tomorrow, and I would have loved an electronic babysitter like a video game to give my kids distracted focus so that I could get back to whatever I thought I could do to make more money, when I thought that was how to win the game of being a good dad. Now I know what the real payoffs are, and it wasn't immediate, like it wasn't like my son kind of sat on my lap, after the dancing experience and said, "Oh, well, Dad, you just proved yourself as a father. I'm in for the rest of your life." Like it's still an ongoing thing, and we sort of betray ourselves and our kids a lot by living into the external expectations a lot. I mean, like, I used to think that being a good father was like part and parcel just being a great provider, and now we don't have as much money right now as we did when I was a pharmaceutical rep, but we're tighter than we've ever been before, and I wouldn't trade it in for anything. I mean, and my life is about to get more busy. The game changer movement is literally taking off as we speak, and I'm going to have a conscious conversation with them. I'm like, okay, what are the trade-offs here, and do you believe in this enough for the world to have fewer violent video games to get some more of your dad's time? And now it's going to be like a real conscious conversation, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity to sit down with them if I didn't make these initial investments. So yeah,
well, you also,
I'm excited about that.
the other thing is though too is that what you're doing now gives you the opportunity to involve your kids in what you're doing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're working, for example, I was working at GM building transmissions, right? So I was in a factory. I couldn't take my kids to work. There was no take your kid to work day.
Get them on the assembly line. All right.
Right.
Yeah, OSHA loves that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but that brings up such a great point, which is that as we're kind of forming this idea of the modern dad, and as things in the workplace are starting to change, but not really changing. I mean, the old traditional model obviously was, dad goes to work in an office somewhere, often far away from the kids, and mom tends to stay home, and she benefits from the income, but so her life involves the kids, but dad's life only involves the kids kind of on the margins. So you know, in an ideal world or a more ideal world, there are plenty of jobs, real jobs available for men that involve that can include and involve their kids. You know, I mean, whether it's traveling around and writing about it or chronicling